How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. Ben here. Quick video here. Thought I would do a worst to best, ranking the studio albums of Dire Straits. Awesome roots rock, blues rock band, led by Mark Knopfler, a personal favorite of mine. I return to pretty much all of these records. They only have 6 studio albums pretty regularly. And what prompted this video specifically, as you might see behind me there, I bought a box set of all 6 of their studio projects for my father as a gift for his birthday. And wish I'd bought one for myself. Great little packaging, great deal on the whole studio catalog of Dire Straits in one nice package. So not a bad project in this bunch. Really hard to rank these and put one at the bottom because there isn't one that I think is bad, even though I think clearly for me, after giving it some thought, number 6 is going to be Communique. Communique is not a bad record, but it's their least memorable. It came out right on the heels of the debut Dire Straits. This one was 79. The debut was 78. Once Upon a Time in the West is the first song off this record, probably the best one on it. Twangy, bluesy, really, really a great song. Lady Writer is probably the biggest hit off of this, the most commercially successful. Again, great tune. But the rest here are just pretty forgettable for me. Some of Knopfler's least interesting lyricism and more boring performances come on like a song like Communicate, the title track of this record. I think is probably the worst song he ever wrote. That's not to say that it is objectively terrible, but it's just not very memorable for me. Pretty clear that that is at the bottom for me, even though on any given day, I could be convinced to replace it with what I'm putting at number 5, which is their final studio album from 1991, I believe. And that is On Every Street. The band really had ceased to exist for like a couple years before they reformed and ultimately put out this album. Calling Elvis is a pretty cool tune. That's the lead track. The title track, On Every Street, just okay, pretty forgettable. What else you got here? Heavy Fuel is a song off this album that is probably as heavy as Dire Straits ever sounded. Very interesting for that reason. Obviously, there's You and Your Friend. The Bug is a cool little irreverent tune. But for the most part, this is a good album. The production is excellent. Knopfler's lyricism, as ever, is serviceable at worst and great at its best. His playing, again, very tasteful. Not a bad record by any means, but not one that feels like the band is trying anything new, that anything new is being attempted on this record. The band at that point was basically just Knopfler. There wasn't much dynamic happening with the other musicians in the group. And then obviously after that brief reformation to put out that record and to tour in support of it, the band ceased to exist. And it's been, 30 years? So probably that is the end, we can say. A good record, not a personal favorite of mine, not one I return to too much. It's very ballad heavy. It's very produced. And those two things are not what makes Dire Straits interesting to me. Next up, in the number 4 spot, I have got Love Over Gold. Forget, I think this was 83. I might be wrong about that. I believe this is from 83. This is sort of Dire Straits' attempt at more long form, progressive, somewhat experimental music. I guess it's their attempt at a concept album, even though it's not really one cohesive artistic vision. This is a great record, very tasteful playing. Telegraph Road is the big cut off the A side that dominates that side. Really, really cool tune. Industrial Disease is a cool tune, sort of interesting, goofy, but not to the point where you can't take it seriously because it has some political messaging in there that I think is pretty interesting. Definitely not a bad record. Again, all these are pretty good records. They're just different degrees of good. That one I think is probably underrated in their catalog. A lot of people say that it's their sort of boring album if they had one. I don't really agree with that. I think that's a really great record. Love Over Gold is one that gets forgotten about because it comes right in between their 2 most commercial periods, right? The debut, Sultans of Swing and all that stuff, and then Brothers in Arms, which segues nicely to what I think is their 3rd best, which is Brothers in Arms from 1985. A good time to mention that Dire Straits, despite having many great albums, 6 great albums, God, their album art is terrible, isn't it? They're all terrible. I don't know what was up with that. They just could not get the album art down. So this is the band reinventing itself, more pop heavy, very produced, radio ready, money for nothing, so far away, why worry, and the title track Brothers in Arms is just excellent, excellent 80s pop rock. And it sees them adapt to the higher production values and synthesizer type sounds and production techniques of the 80s without losing what makes them good and what makes them distinctive, namely Knopfler's excellent lyricism and very tasteful blues roots guitar playing. So definitely a great album. I could be, again, convinced to bump that one up to number 2 and move down what I have at number 2, my vote for their second best album, Making Movies. Their third album, again, what's up with the album art? It's just nothing. This is their third record, and they actually had some time to experiment a bit and try new things. Not that this is a radical departure, unlike between the debut and my vote for their worst record, Communique, which they came out with the debut, and then Communique came out like right on the heels of it, like within like 10 months or something. They had to pump that thing out really quick. This one, the third one, they took some time. It was like a year and a half between studio projects, and they came back with Making Movies. An excellent album, even though I don't really care for the album art all that much. It's not that they have a radical shift, but there's more production, there's more cohesive song ideas. Some of the deeper cuts are a little stronger than I think they were on Communique, and arguably even on the debut, though I don't think there's a bad one on the debut or this record. Tunnel of Love is off this, I think, a fantastic song. Romeo and Juliet is off that record as well, fantastic song. Again, if there's not much to say, it's hard to criticize these in any meaningful way or give any takes that are that interesting. They're just fantastic records, top to bottom, and Making Movies is up there with some of my all-time favorite albums. But I could not displace what I think is their best album, as is the case with so many other bands, their debut. This album is timelessly cool. There's not a bad cut on it. Down to the Waterline and Water of Love, Six Blade Knife, Southbound Again. That's just the A side, and that's songs most Dire Straits fans would know. It's bluesy, it's tasteful. The performances are energetic. They feel organic. The production is serviceable. It's good. It doesn't distract in any meaningful way, but it's not stifling the dynamics of Knopfler's playing. And even the percussion section, the bass player, I think his name was John Ilsey, and then Pick Withers, their drummer. But of course, you have Sultans of Swing, timelessly cool song. I mean, who hates that song? Who can hate that song? Very distinctive sound. This would have been very fresh at the time. This was in the late 70s. What was big? Disco was big. Punk was starting. And all of a sudden, these guys come in with this, not afraid to be themselves, to try something that many would have probably argued was uncool at the time. And what happens? It's the coolest thing to come out of that period. In the Gallery is a pretty cool song. And the surprisingly beautiful melodic Wild West End is on this record, as well as Lions, the album's closer. I guess Lions is probably the weakest tune on it, but it's definitely not bad. There is not a bad cut on this record. It is fantastic. One of the strongest debut albums of a rock band. I mean, there's just really not anything wrong with it. It stands the test of time. As I said, it's timelessly cool. And that's it. I mean, the order could change, but I don't think my number 1 is going to change. Anything else, from 2 to 6 is subject to change based on what I'm listening to, what hits me in the right way. It's all such a solid discography. There's not a bad one in there, but I do think their debut is pretty clearly their strongest project. So that was just a quick little video. This box set is fantastic. The packaging is great. There's really nothing I can say that's bad about this. The deal, I'm not going to say how much it was, but the deal I got on it was pretty good. And it's a joy to own a band's discography when the whole discography is reasonably small, that can be fit in one package and is very consistent musically. I don't know that they even have a bad song. I guess Communique would be my vote for a bad song of theirs, though I really can't bring myself to call it bad. So yeah, check out Dire Straits. They're not A-list. People know them for Sultans of Swing and maybe like Lady Rider, but they're a great band. Their deep cuts are all super strong. And with the possible exception of Communique, every deep cut on every one of their albums is worth a listen. So thanks for watching. That was just a quick video I wanted to throw up because I had these handy and I've been listening to them. Great band, great discography, and again, anything below number one could switch around. That's how strong this discography is. So thanks for watching.